Welcome back to Interjections, fresh off a 1-1 draw against Napoli. We're going to talk about it with you here. I'm your host, Andrew. Sterling, Mikko, and Jay with me. Jay, what's going on?
This is what I get for being uncharacteristically optimistic, confidently predicting an easy breezy, lemon squeezy victory. So, you know, looks like I'm right back to square one.
Mikko, I'm sure you're feeling more optimistic than Jay.
I'm sure they are. Pretty okay feeling. Of course, the draw is not optimal, but looking good in my mind.
Sterling, always a pleasure having you back. How have you been?
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to be here, and I've been great. All to play for as we are about a third into the season now, and it seems like it's essentially like we're starting the league over, but only with 6 or 7 teams really in contention to potentially win it, all within a point of each other. So should be a pretty exciting 2/3 left.
Yeah, we'll get into talking about how tight this table is, but of course we have to start with the draw against Napoli yesterday. It's another instance of us dropping points at home against the Scudetto candidates as we draw Napoli 1-1. As much as we were all optimistic last week, we were expecting a tight match. I think if you look at the predictions, it was a lot of 1-0s, and a tight match is exactly what we got. Neither team had a ton of chances. It was they were kind of feeling each other out. Napoli came out content to sit back and force us to break them down. And when they created a goal out of absolutely nothing, my concern level was high because it was going to be 70 minutes of us trying to puncture a hole in their defense. We fought back, thankfully, with Hakan pulling an absolute rabbit out of his hat. That individual moment of brilliance we're always looking for. But unfortunately, from there, we couldn't kick it up a notch. I don't think Napoli had a good chance again in the game after their goal. And while we had a bunch of half chances, we didn't really come close to winning this match. So the result is a 1-1 draw that makes the table very congested. That makes us not feeling great when you consider how these three home matches have gone against our Scudetto rivals. It just feels like a lot of missed opportunities. The most disappointing aspect to the match for me yesterday was the goal we conceded, because after such a strong defensive showing against Arsenal, where we really protected that 1-0 lead, I would just hoped we had graduated past these mental blunders in the defensive phase. And Dumfries concedes a corner that's I don't want to say he didn't have to concede, but he really didn't have to. Like it could have been avoided, but then just to completely lose McTominay on the corner, a little pinball ball action. Summer never had a chance, and you to go down 1-0 like that, it was really disheartening for me. So Sterling, what do you think of the goal we conceded? And just like, I know you haven't been in the past few episodes, but do you agree with our general analysis of this defensive? The goals we're conceding tend to be individual errors, lapses in concentration, rather than like an overarching systematic issue.
Yeah, I do agree with that. However, I wasn't so upset with this goal, to be completely honest. It is funny because I think, had about 15 corners against Arsenal, who is notoriously a great set piece team. And I think we specifically trained to stop their set pieces from being advantageous for them. And obviously it worked. We were able to keep a clean sheet. And then the very first corner we give up against Napoli, boom, it's a goal. And I do think that is kind of a microcosm of our form in Champions League this year versus Serie A. It just seems like we have mentally switched off a lot in the league this season, and it's shown in the amount of goals that we concede. Because, as you mentioned, it's not necessarily a systematic thing as much as it is a concentration thing, and I think we've seen that throughout the league this season because the guys just don't seem as motivated as they were last season, obviously. However, with that being said, as I said, we are going to concede goals sometimes, right? It's part of the game. I would be more upset if it was some type of a free-flowing move from Napoli that just sliced us open, like we have seen happen in recent games in Serie A. These types of set-piece goals, sometimes it's going to happen sometimes. And I think the issue on that goal was more so Thuram not getting tight to Ratmani, because the first touch is really what creates the goal. And you know how it is if an opposing team has two touches in the box on a corner kick, that usually results in a goal. I don't think there's much that Dumfries would be able to do to stop McTominay from sweeping that ball in, just given where he was and where he was positioned. And I don't think he was really positioned that poorly. I think that's just sometimes just how it goes. He was goal side of him, and it happened so quickly. I don't really blame Dumfries for not getting tight there. I more so blame Thuram for allowing Ratmani to essentially to just side foot past the ball in the 6 yard box. That's more of an issue there. But yeah, after that, I think that defensively we were pretty decent. Obviously, there was a chance at the very end of the game that we gave up, which is always nerve-wracking, and I'm sure we'll get into the subs and why Inzaghi does some of the things that he does. But overall, I thought it was a decent defensive display, and yeah, I mean it's obviously disappointing to let up a goal against the run of play, but I wasn't overly disheartened by that goal like I have been some of the ones recently where it's just defensively us getting gutted and ripped open.
And to your point, that was the first goal we'd conceded in 3 or 4 matches. We had been looking better, and it just hurts when you're playing a guy like Conte. Those smash and grab goals are seemingly his specialty, and when you allow them to get one, you're going to be in for a long night. We were quickly able to counter it courtesy of the Hakan screamer. Just fantastic goal. And we had thought we were heading towards a Hakan man of the match performance when Dumfries draws a somewhat iffy penalty. VAR confirms it. And then Hakan steps up to the spots. Of course, he rattles it off the post. Suddenly, what looked like a certain victory remains level. You can't be too mad at Hakan, in my opinion. That's his first missed penalty for us. I think I read it was his first missed penalty in like 6 years. The guy was bound to miss at some time. He just picked a very unfortunate time to get that first miss. Mikko, what did you think of the screamer? What did you think of the penalty? Break it down for me.
Yeah, the screamer, the goal, that was of course fantastic, like you said, and I think it's not too typical that calhanoglu gets such a free space in front of him like he did there, and obviously he's gonna use it. And after that goal, he tried to find the space again, and obviously he didn't, because Napoli players realized that okay, there was a mistake when we left that much space to him. So that's a nice weapon to have in your team. And of course, this time the shot really hit the spot, and it had this beautiful, like a small curl right in the end of the when it almost like it started to curl away from Meret before, so Meret couldn't connect it perfectly. And
should the goalkeeper be doing better, in your opinion, Mikko?
I wouldn't call it was Meret's fault, because it was starting to turn away from Meret right before it hit him. But yeah, I could see an argument that okay, maybe he should have catch it because it was pretty central. But then again, I would argue that it was so strong, it was coming so fast that you can't react to the curve anymore when it started to curve away from Meret, and you can't really react. And he got his hands to the ball, but it was like too late, because he was anticipating that okay, it's coming to me, I'm going to raise my hands, and then it's slightly on left from Meret's position. The ball went like straight through his hands. So I wouldn't fault him for the goal. I would just credit calhanoglu for this great shot.
Yeah, I agree with that. I saw some people online, and the commentary said, "Hey, he got half a hand to it, and he probably should be doing a bit better there. But I mean, the pace on that ball, the fact that there's so many bodies in front of him, it's dipping, it's swerving. I mean, I don't think there's anything he can really do. I think you just gotta give credit to Hakan, and he's probably been due for a goal like that for quite some time. He frequently tests keepers with good long range shooting, and he always has pace on it. So one of those was bound to go in eventually. I think that the height on it as well just made it very difficult for Moret to stop it. So I don't really fault him at all for that.
Yeah. And as for the penalty, yeah, maybe we can talk about the VAR discussion, VAR decision later, and what Conte said about them. But the penalty, yeah, that was unfortunate. Like Andrew mentioned, I wouldn't fault calhanoglu either. It was just fortunate it was this match and not like, for example, against Arsenal, which is another discussion. It would be interesting to hear. Would you have taken this miss against Arsenal rather than in this match, and like take a draw from that match and win from this match, or other way around? I would have taken a win from this match, but that would be interesting to hear. What you guys would have
You know,
taken?
I actually would have taken. No, I would have things work out the way that they did, honestly. And I know that's probably weird, maybe for some Inter fans to hear, because obviously we're, you know, the league is the priority. But I really think that mentally we've been needing a big scalp in the Champions League for a long time, and you know, you can argue whether or not Arsenal is really that big of a scalp, given the fact that they haven't really been that competitive in Champions League for a long time. But in people's minds, Arsenal is a big team, and you know, they frequently run close with City and Liverpool in the English Premier League for, you know, for that title. You know, they're there within 5 points, it seems like, the last 2 years. So in casual fans' minds, they're a big team, and a team that, you know, should be beating a lowly Italian team, right? But um, I think it was good for us to get that bit of a mental edge in the Champions League, because we really haven't been beating big teams in the Champions League in a very long time. I mean, in knockout rounds, it's been since 2011, I believe, was the last time we actually knocked out a big team in Champions League. And obviously, this is just a group stage game, so it doesn't necessarily mean as much as you know, knocking somebody out over two legs would mean. But it's a good step in that direction, and I think that that's part of the maturation process of the team. So I actually am happy that we were able to get that result and do it while resting players. I think that was kind of a signal to the rest of Europe to what we actually can potentially do in that competition. And look, like I said in the beginning, Serie A is still all to play for. Obviously, I would have loved it if we hit both, but we're 1 point behind Napoli, and you know, there's a swath of teams that are right there with us. So I'm not, you know, there's still plenty of time left in the season for us to make it up.
Yeah, I mean, Sterling makes a good point that it's kind of the so-called prestige of beating a club like Arsenal versus the practical advantage of jumping to the top spot on the table in the league. I'd probably take the practical approach of let's go top of the league, knowing we're in a pretty good spot in the Champions League still. But I think the players would agree with Sterling. I think the players are prioritizing the Champions League, and they like those marquee matches. So, like I said, the practical side of me, I'd much prefer be top of the table. If we were sitting first in Serie A right now going to this international break, the vibes for me would be so much better. But now we're talking about a third performance at home where we've dropped points, and it's just a lot harder for me to feel confident about our Scudetto chances after another performance like that. Whereas in the Champions League, I'd be feeling good about where we're sitting in that competition, regardless of if it was a win or a draw against Arsenal.
I would comment that I don't know if this sounds a bit weird, but somehow I feel even better after watching the match about our Scudetto chances, even if we drew the match. Because to me, we were, how would I say it? I think we were a bit unlucky in a sense. That okay, the fact is we didn't create that much, we didn't create that many chances, but we did still create something. We had the Dumfries cross to Lautaro. We had the Barella chance on the edge of the box. Then there were well, of course, the penalty.
Pavard chance.
Yeah, yeah, but Buongiorno blocked that pretty well. But then there was the DiMarco shot to
The
the
Varela
post.
chance as well.
Yeah, I mentioned that on the edge of the box, and I felt that we looked so much better than Napoli. That like they had no business in this game. They had something in the first half when they got some counters, including the one which calhanoglu like gave the ball to Lukaku. I don't know what was that. But they didn't have much. Unlike like we completely dominated them, and we can give credit, of course, Conte and Napoli that they defend very well, but that was their only like that was their target. Yeah, they got the goal, and I agree with Andrew. I had the same feeling that okay, this is bad now. They got the goal, and now they can just defend and do nothing, and it will be hard for us. But we got the goal back, and then in the second half we were much better. Napoli did nothing in the second half, and somehow I felt confident that okay, we are so much better than Napoli that we have a good chance to get the Scudetto. Of course, there's a lot of factors in play. Like the big one is the no midweek games for Napoli. That's one. But I still feel that they are so much like dependent on Kvaratskhelia and Lukaku doing their stuff, and if they can't pull off a goal somewhere, it's gonna be hard for them. And we remember the Empoli Napoli match where they were pretty poor, but then they got the penalty out of some ridiculous Politano dive or some kind of a. I checked that afterwards, and that was much cheaper than this Anguissa Dumfries case, and maybe we can discuss that incident like next. But I'm not sure how strong Napoli really is, and can they keep up if they don't like find something new in their game. And okay, they won't play they won't play Inter every week, but if they struggle against Empoli, and I think they struggled a bit against Milan as well, even though they won Milan because Milan is not good at defending their goal, like we saw against Cagliari
And
this
they
weekend.
rested players too. Milan was resting players for a midweek game.
Yeah, they missed like Theo and Reinders because of disqualifications. So some weird way, I feel more confident despite us not winning this match.
But isn't this
But
sort of what Conte does? He goes, he kind of plays the rope-a-dope against the top clubs. He's going to draw you 1-1. He did a similar thing when they went to Juve earlier this year and they didn't really play football. But then they go and they rack up points against the bottom half of the table sides, the sides that we've struggled against this year, like Monza and Genoa. And suddenly you're in match week 30 and they have a lead over you because they've been taking care of business and they just did enough against the non-big sides to be propelled to a Scudetto type run. I feel like we saw this firsthand in Conte's second season when we came out. We dropped points to Milan. Everyone was feeling a little down. So I understand, like, we definitely played better. We have looked better on the whole than Napoli recently. But I just know that when you get to these games against Venezia, Verona, pick your random fodder side, Conte is going to take 3 points. And I don't know. I don't have the same confidence we're going to take 3 points. So Napoli are still by far the biggest Scudetto challenger for us right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, they are biggest Scudetto challenger, but I wouldn't call them like a favorite at this point yet. Like, yeah, if the case is like that after round 30, like you said, then we can, and we don't have a matchup against them anymore. I don't know what's the schedule, but if that's the case, yeah, then I am worried. Still, at the moment, we have everything in our own hands, so I'm not too worried. We need to remember they also lost to Atalanta at home. Like they got dismantled there. So it's not like Napoli is this unstoppable force. I understand your point about how Conte does his thing, but I feel that if they try to pull it off all season long, it might not be enough. It might be because of their schedule and no Euro football. It might be enough, but somehow I feel positive still, pretty positive. What's your take, Jay, on this match?
That's some next level self gaslighting there. But no, I get where you're coming from. On one hand, I share the sentiment that of disappointment because, as Andrew mentioned at the top, this is yet another game against direct title challenger, a 6-pointer where we've not won. Where we've got 2 points out of 9 from Napoli, Juventus, and Milan. And two of these games were home games as well. So now that means we need to go and travel to Juventus. We need to travel to Naples in the second half of the season. And that's not going to get any easier, assuming or hoping and assuming that we're still competing in other tournaments as well. So that's really not good when you think about it that way. You need to be winning these 6-pointers, especially at home. But having said that, I do think on another day we would have won this game. I do think we created enough. We had that shot from DeMarco, which hit the post. We had a few good chances through Barella and I think Dumfries put in some good balls here and there. And it's not often that I find myself saying things like that. On another day we could have won. Normally I'm the guy that says it wasn't good enough, and I think both things are true in this instance. So I'm less upset at this draw than I normally would be. Having said that, I guess, I thought Barella, his game was the perfect summation of the team as a whole. Barella was everywhere last night. He was so involved in everything, and yet most of the things that he tried to pull off were just lacking quality. That final ball, that final shot, that incisive pass, whatever it was, just lacking 10 to 20% of quality to reach its target or to stretch the Napoli defense or whatever it might be. And as mentioned, I thought that was indicative of the entire team. There was a lot of decent play for the most part, but then when it came to the final ball or the final piece of that movement or of that phase of play, we were just not good enough in terms of finding the right man or finding the target. The forwards in particular, Lautaro, I thought was, I don't know, mediocre in the extreme. There's just a real, it was only last week where I think Fon said he felt like Lautaro had kind of turned a corner, and that was from his very mature performance against Arsenal. Today, I just felt like he was trying to do something similar, but nothing was coming off for him. I thought like, every decision he made was the wrong one. All his connecting balls and attempts to keep the ball or attempts to recycle possession and keep possession flowing just were all stymied by the Napoli defense closing him down aggressively. I thought Buongiorno was excellent yesterday. So yeah, there seems to be a bit of a problem still with Lautaro truly getting off the ground. It still feels like he's just kind of like stuck in the mud, like knee deep, and just unable to really get going. As a
It seems like
whole,
we're having more of a problem scoring goals now than actually we are defensively. It seems like all of a sudden our problem in the last week and a half, 2 weeks has kind of flip-flopped. At least it feels that way to me.
yeah, I do agree. I think there's a general malaise of the entire season. What are we, 7-4-1? That's not great. We should be aiming for like the high 60, 70% win rate to maintain a title charge, especially when you've used up a lot of those kind of home games, as mentioned. We've won our home game against Atalanta, and that's really it. Nice, we lost our home game against Milan. Did we? Was that a home game? Was that an away game? I can't remember. But
We were
Yeah, it
home.
was a home game. Yeah.
yeah, so we lost our home tie against Milan. We blew a 2-goal lead in our home tie against Juventus, and then we dropped another 2 points in our home tie against Napoli yesterday. As mentioned, the reverse of these fixtures are only going to get harder. Away to Napoli, away to Juventus, away to Atalanta, away to Milan. So it's honestly not the best situation to be in, and we're left with we've put ourselves in a situation where we simply cannot afford many more scrubs anymore. I know Mikko's big on the whole kind of like budgeting thing and saying we can potentially draw 6 more games and lose 3 more games and still finish on, I don't know, 85 points or whatever it is. So I don't really forecast like that, but whatever that system of prediction is, I presume that we've used up a great many amount of our remaining available draws and losses. And we're not even, halfway through the season. So that's a bit of a concern.
I'm not sure if the numbers will back me up on this or not, but it certainly feels like we're having a bit of a striker issue this season. Certainly, Lautaro is obviously not the Lautaro he was last season, and there's reasons for that. We've kind of gone over those reasons previously. Obviously, he had a long summer, had a very weird preseason, really didn't have a preseason, just kind of got thrust into it from the very first jump, and it just doesn't really look like he's been fit all year. And the biggest chance yesterday that I felt like we spurned was actually the Lautaro chance when Dumfries was on the left wing and put in a really good ball to him where with a decent touch, essentially he's
Yes,
one-on-one with
yes.
the goalkeeper and he really should be able to slot that home. I think that was the moment really where we should have taken the lead in the match, and that would have changed things because then Napoli has to come out and attack us for essentially the entire second half, and then we have chances to counter. And it just seems like this season it's one step forward, one step backward for him. But if you look a little deeper, Taremi, we got to talk about Taremi a little bit because I was a huge fan of the signing, and I'm not going to sit here and say that he's a flop or that he's not a good player. I think he's done really good things in the team, but he scored 1 goal all season, and it's from a penalty kick. Arnautovic, I believe, was he on 1 goal so far this season as well in the Champions League? I believe no goals
Yeah,
in
I
Serie
think
A.
so. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Thuram, who's been the best of the group, no doubt about that. But still, just odd decision making from him at times, and in recent matches, especially even today at times, just very odd decision making. Um, the forward line has really taken a step backwards so far this season, and I think that when you look at these big matches, I mean that's your difference right there. If you have a Lautaro that's in form yesterday, odds are he takes that chance, and goals change games, they change outcomes, they change the way teams have to approach matches, and it can certainly result in different points on the table. So, I mean, I think if you say, hey, we have an informed Lautaro, like we did last season for the majority of this season, you're probably looking at us with at least 4 more points, I would say, on the table. I think that even the Juventus game, there were chances that were spurned. And so, you know, um, that's really where I see our biggest issue is, at least right now. It seems like we've stopped the bleeding a bit defensively, but it seems like we're having a hard time getting our strikers in form, which, I guess we could say shouldn't be too surprising because if you really look at us in recent years, it's really only ever been the two starters who have been good consistently. And so, you had to know at some point there was going to be a moment where either Lautaro or Thuram was going to be out of form. And the question was, do we have somebody on the bench that would legitimately push them, legitimately take chances when they were put into the match? And so far, we thought that player was going to be Taremi. Again, that's why I was excited about the signing. But so far, that's proven to just not be the case. And I do know it's still early in the season. I'm not saying I'm writing him off by any means, but it's always concerning when you have a striker who just isn't getting chances. And we have to be honest, Taremi, it's not like he's fluffing his lines and missing sitters. He's just not getting chances.
Part of
See,
that's I agree 100% with the assessment, and I think part of that's just largely due to the type of striker that he is. He's I'd watched him before, especially in the Champions League. I knew that he was mobile and a well-rounded number 9, but I didn't think I didn't expect him to be as committed to closing down and harrying the opponents and that, and being like a high pressure player. I mean, in terms of like pressuring the opponent, but that's obviously been quite useful, and we saw that at its absolute peak against Red Star, where he basically created 2 goals out of nothing by simply winning the ball back high up the pitch and feeding teammates. But he's not really the type of player who's going to shoot from distance, create a whole lot of chances for his teammates, or use that spark of creativity to make something happen out of the blue for himself or for his teammates. And that's I think the kind of player that we are really lacking. As much as Taremi's freshness, his fitness, and his industrial play style is as nice as it is, it's it's not like the kind of creative breath of fresh air that you'd like off the bench, and that's something that we've been kind of bemoaning for a long time, because I think at the top level, that's one of the the key determining factors in your ability to win games and titles. You have these difference makers off the bench. We've been talking about it for ages. Like there's not many teams out there, or it's a pretty provincial thing to do, to just throw on like a big target man, kind of like Cagliari putting on Pavoletti last night. You'd hope that, and I get that Inzaghi likes his system, so he's kind of going for like in-system replacements, but we don't have a system breaker, for us or the opponents. We don't have a player that can come in and change our system to one that's more creative, more fluid, and therefore disrupts the way the opponent anticipates our system. We don't have that, and so I think long term that's going to be a massive detriment. Arnautovic is and always has been a complete joke of a transfer. I don't care that he scored a goal against that lady. This guy is a 35-year-old man-child who has not matured, regrettably, has not been able to kind of emotionally cope with the homecoming, the level of expectation that came with it. And Korea is not even worth wasting our breath on at this point. So the striker situation is a problem. I do hope we try to dip in the summer mercato, though I won't get my hopes up. I just want to quickly give a shout out to Dumfries, actually. I think he's been really strong this season. I've noticed that he's been a lot more adventurous in his passing and his crossing. Now, Dumfries, I've always been critical of his lack of technical ability. He doesn't tend to make these diagonal crosses, right? He needs to be played in an overlap to the byline, and then he'll run, he'll get the ball, and he'll cut it back. He won't try to like loop a diagonal cross and curl in the ball if there's a defender marking him or trying to block that crossing avenue, right? As mentioned, he'll go the safe route. He'll try to go for a 1-2 and then create space down the overlap. But this season, last few months in particular, I feel like it's been a lot more willing to try. Like he'll just go for these big looping crosses, and he's no DeMarco, he's no David Beckham, but they've been pretty good by and large. So it kind of feels like a subtle difference on one hand, but I think it actually brings a lot to his game. And obviously he's been involved in some big moments recently. Won a penalty against Juventus, scored a goal against Juventus, had a strong performance against Arsenal, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's my shout out to Dumfries. I think he's been one of our underrated strong performers so far.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that he certainly brings more going forward than you ultimately get with Darmian, at least certainly as an individual. Sometimes I do question whether we play a little bit better sometimes with Darmian in that position, just because our build-up play can be a little bit more fluid. But it's hard to argue with the fact that Dumfries is an out-and-out aerial threat. He's certainly got more pace than Darmian. And yeah, his balls actually have been a lot better this season. I like those whipped in looping crosses that he does that are on the ground. behind the defensive line because they always seem to create danger. And I much prefer that as opposed to the Dumfries we had a couple of years ago where, we switched the ball to him in the Champions League final and he has a chance to whip a cross in and he stands on the ball, turns around and passes backwards when we're in full flow. My only issue with Dumfries is more so defensively. He has this tendency to tuck in closer to the right center back than probably is necessary, and sometimes that can cause issues because if the ball is switched, then he has to then cover more ground to go out and press whoever the left winger is, and sometimes that can create danger. Obviously, it happened against Juventus on one of the Yildiz situations. But yeah, overall, it's good to have him back in form because we really missed having him last year for large periods. It seemed like after that injury he had around the halfway mark, we never really got to see a good Dumfries again. So it's good that he's back, and it does seem like he's usurped Darmian again as being the starter there. But maybe this is a good time to talk about the penalty since we're already kind of talking about Dumfries here. And I got to be honest, guys, I don't think that's a penalty. I think it was extremely harsh. If it was called against an Inter player, I would be pretty livid about it. I think that the ball is being shielded, and I think that the player does enough to show that he's making an attempt to shield the ball. Dumfries certainly does get a foot in there, and there's certainly contact. There's no debating that. The review will show that there's contact there, and he lightly scrapes his shin with his studs, no doubt about that. But I feel like that's part of the game, and a player does have the right to shield the ball in that instance. I didn't think that was. I thought that was a very, very soft penalty, and so maybe the miss is a little bit of, I guess, justice in a weird way. Trust me, I wish we scored it, but that leads me to believe more that the draw was probably a bit more of a fair result. But what did you guys think about the penalty call?
I think it was pretty clear. Like, who's the referee? I don't remember the guy's name, but he was like watching it. He was like almost like grounding to proning to watch it. Are there gonna be like contact? And then he saw the contact, and Dumfries went down, and okay, there's the foul, there's the penalty. No questions. I agree that maybe the contact was a bit soft, but then again, it was nowhere close to the ball, and it was just he was just late there, or like it wasn't close to the ball. It was straight to the shin, and I don't know. I don't understand how Conte can complain so much about that penalty call. Yeah, maybe it's a bit cheap, but it's not a clear error to call that penalty because it is a contact, and I doubt anyone is going to complain if that's called in the midfield, that kind of a foul. I really don't see anyone complaining about that.
I don't know the letter of the law in terms of the rules, but that's never stopped me from making wild accusations before. So why start now? But I don't think like the whole logic of if that was a foul, if that happened in midfield, it'd given as a foul. I think the referee has utilizes a lot of discretion and a lot of kind of I don't want to say common sense, but their own kind of partial and biased judgment to keep things flowing. When it comes to fouls in the box, I don't really agree with the notion of like contact guarantees a foul. Like it's a contact sport, you know what I mean? And was that contact enough to gain an unfair advantage to stop a man of Dumfries' size from contesting the ball fairly? For me, the answer is 1 gajillion% no, and therefore I would really like these kinds of shit penalties to stop being given. But it is what it is.
But did you guys see the Lautaro case you talked about earlier, the Lautaro chance
Do you mean the handball?
when Dumfries gave the cross to Lautaro, which he didn't one time it. I would expect he to shot it right there, but he
Yeah.
tried to get the ball and
I thought
failed
the touch
there.
came off his own hand or did it come off?
Yeah,
German?
but it was who's the guy? I don't remember. Oliveira. I think it actually touched Oliveira's hand, and I don't know why VAR didn't intervene because it looked like he almost like slapped the ball, and it really changed the direction how the ball was bouncing, or how
Yeah,
it
but is
bounced.
that an unnatural position when you're running? I mean, if his hands were
But you
outstretched,
but he like slapped the ball and it changed the direction where it's gonna bounce to the grass. So I don't understand why
yeah.
VAR didn't catch that. I think that was a penalty as well, but
Mm.
they completely missed that one.
I'd have to rewatch that honestly because I saw the replay multiple times and it never stood out to me once. And I feel like
I,
if it was something egregious, I certainly would have remembered
I
it
think
personally.
yeah, I saw it during the match. They showed maybe once the replay, and it looked like Lautaro actually handled the ball. But then I saw many videos in Twitter, and there it looks like okay, that's definitely Oliveira's hand slapping the ball. It was like slapping, not just
This is the football equivalent of some flat earther shit, Miko. What have you
no
been
no
watching?
no.
What have you been watching on Twitter exactly?
The
Yeah,
deep state
you
made
should
this
watch.
call.
Yeah, they are not like alt. They are not like videos. Some AI modified videos. They are just just from the match. So there's I don't know. I think they just completely missed that one. But I think that was a penalty. But irregardless, maybe calhanoglu would have missed that anyway. But I'm just.
Doesn't
I,
this kind of
I,
get into our conversation from last week, though, of like, what is VAR's role in the sport? And is it to find all these, ticky tack minor infractions and elevate them to something worse? Or is it to, correct gross performances by referees that lead to blatant poor decisions? And I'd much prefer a use where it's coming in over the top and only intervening in the most harshest of circumstances rather than something like yesterday where I saw the exact video you were referencing, Mikko, and I agree. Like, it hit Oliveira's hands, and Oliveira's hand was a little raised, but I didn't see Lautaro like clamoring for a penalty after that instance. I don't know if that intervention really stopped a goal scoring chance. Like, I understand by the letter of the law, sure, it was probably a penalty, but I also don't want to see VAR giving out stuff like that, man. I want to see VAR intervening when a goal is called offsides and after review it ends up being on by a foot. Things like that, like we saw with thuram a couple weeks ago. I understand it's a gray area, so maybe there's not a good way of doing it, but like the perfect example I think was the Dumfries penalty that we're just talking about, where the referee made the call on the field, and there was absolutely no way VAR can overturn that once it's made by the referee. There's no way you're going to have enough evidence. There's no way you're going to have enough differences of opinion to allow that to be overturned. And I'm cool with VAR being used in that manner.
Yeah, I agree. And regarding the Dumfries penalty, I think VAR cannot really they can't see the impact how hard the hit is. Like in this case, Angissa's foot is like contacting Dumfries' shin. I think it's hard to evaluate with the replay when it's like slowed down. I don't know, can they look them in the real speed? But I saw how Mariani, the referee, he was really looking there that okay, is there going to be a contact? And then he called it, and maybe it was because Angissa's foot contacted, like the impact was hard enough for him to call the penalty. But yeah, I can agree it was maybe a bit cheap. Like Jay mentioned, it's a contact sport, so maybe these kind of cases shouldn't be dictating the results, and this case it didn't. So maybe it was a fair result, but I'm going to I'm still going to stand by this Lautaro play that should have been a penalty anyway. But yeah, I want to quickly comment on Conte, how and what he did after the match. In the post match conference, he went pretty hard against this penalty call, and I think that was kind of a brilliant kind of communication tactic to draw the attention to this kind of detail, which in my case, in this case. It was kind of a ridiculous because Mariani called it on the pitch, and yeah, there was contact. You can call that. It wasn't some blatant error by the referee or anything like that. And they just got like 2 weeks ago, they got some ridiculous penalty call against Empoli, and I bet Conte wasn't complaining about that. But now he did, of course, because his team look like absolute shit apart from their defending.
Who cares? It's Conte. He's going to complain regardless.
Yeah, but they had no fucking business in this match. Like they came here to just defend, and I don't think that they kind of did a good job, but we really were so much better and created some good chances here and there. And
now you sound like you're an AFT.
But they didn't create these kind of chances. I think that's a good point, that we can compare these two matches. Like against Arsenal, we were the one who just defended, and in this one we were the one who attacked and had the possession.
Yeah, but we were the ones sitting here applauding our valiant defensive efforts midweek against Arsenal. Now we're sitting here saying, yeah, well, Napoli didn't deserve to be in the game. They just sat back and defended. You can't have it both ways.
Well, we can have it both ways, because we defended against Arsenal in a way that they didn't do much apart from the corners. They didn't do much, but in this match, I think we could have scored a few more goals.
Yeah, but Arsenal had a higher XG against us than we had against Napoli.
Yeah, I was just about to mention the XG, that it always doesn't. Like this Lautaro case.
This is some high-strung mental gymnastics here.
Come on. This Lautaro play, the XG of that wasn't too high. You know why? Because he didn't one time that. He tried to juggle and take a second touch. That was a poor one. So the final XG of this play was like, I don't know, it was less than 0.1, because he tried some backhill shit. But if he tried to shot it one time, it would have been like a, I don't know, maybe 1.2, 0.2 XG chance.
The moment
no matter where the ball would have went from the one-time shot, but the XG, it doesn't always tell how the danger created.
Yeah, no, I agree. The best chance we had yesterday, probably had 0 XG, and it was thuram with the ball on a breakaway against Buongiorno, and Buongiorno completely pocketed the guy, sent him to ground, won the ball. And it gets back to what Jay was saying earlier in the episode, where we just do not have any game wreckers. We do not have any real depth at forward. And I was thinking, after Buongiorno made that fantastic play, I don't think we have a single player on our team who could have created a goal-scoring chance out of this obvious breakaway. It was like a 2-on-1 breakaway opportunity. Like, we just don't have anybody capable of taking on a guy as high quality of Buongiorno, beating him off the dribble, and getting a clear shot on goal. And it's disheartening, because there was tons of opportunities like that exist within the course of the game. It's just not the way we play. So
the Yildiz goals against us come to mind.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. And at the end of the day, we have such a strong system that we usually don't talk about this too much. We know we aren't a dribbling team. We know we use runs and tic-tac passing and all that. But it makes you think, okay, so Arnautovic and Correa's contracts are expiring. We want to go out and get a forward in the summer. 3 weeks ago, we were sitting here talking about Jonathan David and how he'd be a decent fit, and now he keeps scoring goals, and suddenly he's probably not even a realistic candidate for us, because he's just driving up his own price. He's attracting more interest, and Like, what are we going to do? Are we going to sign that 10 million nobody and just hope some pace solves our problems? It's a concern. And when you're struggling, when Lautaro is in poor form and thuram, his form has definitely ticked down since the start of the season, it'd be so handy to have somebody who can just like create a special moments from the forward line. And we don't have that. We have a try-hard guy in Taremi and two corpses in Cray and Arnautovic. And the fact we're sitting here and I think we have 0 league goals between 3 backup forwards, it's the problem. It's why we can't score if Lautaro's not in good form.
Yeah,
we need more goals in the midfield. Like Fertesi is the only one scoring. Obviously, Zielinski scored 2 penalties, but need more goals from Barella. Need more goals from Mkhitaryan and Calhanoglu as well.
Can we just really quickly talk about some of Inzaghi's changes yesterday, mid-match? It's a weird thing with him. I feel like he sets up matches very well, certainly tactically. He does have his favorite players. He's never going to drop Mkhitaryan, but I thought it was very strange that, number one, he didn't make any sub yesterday until the 81st minute. And number two, the changes that he actually did make, I found a little bit puzzling. Number one, taking off Hakan. I mean, I guess he is back from injury recently, so maybe there was a reason for that in terms of the amount of minutes that he's able to play currently. But I don't love Zielinski in that regista role. I do think that he's still probably a better option than Asllani in that regista role at the moment. But I just don't think it's the best way to get the most out of him. I feel like if you're really trying to win a game, you probably keep Hakan on and you probably sub Zielinski in for Mkhitaryan. Taking DeMarco off to play Darmian at left wing back again, also a strange decision in my mind. And then the strangest one to me was taking Bastoni off. I don't understand the need to always sub Bastoni or rotate Bastoni if you're going to take a center back off. It seems like it's always him. I mean, the guy's in his prime. He's like, 25 or 26 years old. Didn't necessarily look overly tired to me. And to take him off to then put a Cherby at left center back and put De Vrij on in crunch time, who, of course, then gives up a late chance by not being tight enough to
De Vrij was the one caught ball watching in that last second.
Yeah, exactly. And listen, he's always De Vrij does this. It's just we've seen it's not like we don't have a big sample size on De Vrij, right? He's been here for years and years, and when it's crunch time, if there's going to be a weak link in the chain, odds are it's probably going to be him. That's just the truth. So I thought that the subs were very weird towards the end of the match. It seemed to me like maybe Inzaghi was comfortable with the draw. I think once that Calhanoglu penalty clanked off the post, it seemed like maybe he was resigned to the fact that he just wanted to take the point and move on. But it's just a weird thing that I feel like Inzaghi does sometimes. His subs really hurt the team sometimes in big matches to where it's very difficult for us to mount any type of late surge and go out and steal a match in the last 5 minutes or so or an extra time, because I can tell you for sure once Arnautovic came on, we were never going to create another chance. Taremi and Arnautovic up there together is just never gonna create anything. So
it doesn't help that Lautaro as well. He's actually got a dismal record when he comes off the bench. He almost never scores as a substitution. Most of his goals, if I'm not mistaken, obviously he's playing as a starter the vast majority of the time anyway, but in the rare times that he does come on as a second half substitute, his strike rate is practically non-existent. So there's obviously something, I guess, partly psychological there, but I also think it's just the kind of player that he is. We're talking about this earlier. He's not the kind of player that's going to come on late against the tired defense and terrorize them with his with his lightning pace and tricky dribbling and all that kind of stuff. That's not who he is. That's not the kinds of skills he possesses. So it just speaks to that real lack of that kind of skill set that we have in the team, unfortunately. So
yeah, I think Inzaghi mentioned in the post-match press conference that he he was happy how we played in the second half. I kind of agree. We completely controlled it, and he didn't feel that he needs to change anyone. So I guess that was the reason for the late subs. As for the, I don't know, I kind of agree on the, I don't know, the Zielinski sub. I think it's fine. He doesn't want to run Calhanoglu and DiMarco and those guys to the ground, so he takes them off when the time is right, and the time was right at that point. But yeah, I think Zielinski goes a bit of waste in that role, that deep role. And Darmian, well, I think what you, Sterling, said, that he was kind of content with the draw at that point, in a sense that he wanted to make sure that at least we won't leak on the left side. We'll have Darmian there instead of DiMarco, who had again run the whole match. And typically DiMarco doesn't play the 90 minutes, so maybe that's the reason he wanted to take him out. As for the forwards, I think Thuram in general had a pretty poor match, as well as Lautaro. Like, both had a poor match, and and the Arnautovic coming in, it felt that Inzaghi just want to make sure that there's a new legs who can run and do the duties defensively what the forwards need to do, because I think that was 89th minute when Lautaro came off and Bastoni came off. So yeah, we weren't doing anything after Taremi and Arnautovic were playing. That was certain. And yeah, in the end we ended up, even like you said, we ended up conceding that chance, and that's a bit of an, I don't know how we still keep doing it. We talked about this week ago when we played against Venezia and what happened there, like right in the last seconds, and now the same thing happened. Basically, we somehow concede this kind of a chance in the, I think it was the last seconds of the match. So maybe there's one thing to fix, to try to play the last minutes properly. If we are not the ones trying to score, at least make sure that opponents won't be there trying to score, or like let them try to score like we did.
The one thing I've noticed is like the sequence of the forward substitutions, and because Lautaro is captain, it's almost like Inzaghi's more hesitant to take him off the pitch. Like yesterday, I don't think anyone can argue Thuram had a better game than Lautaro. Yeah,
I can argue. I think they both had a terrible games.
I've had enough of this. All right.
What? Like, Thuram did nothing there. Like, he was a total bum in my mind.
Thuram at least has pace. He has the ability to bring the ball forward.
Yeah, but he didn't do anything.
He did. Lautaro does not contribute these same, basic channels to relieve some pressure when he's not on his game. He's just going to make, failed flick pass after failed flick pass, and he'll get the ball and then he'll try to like beat his man, but he never ever does, even when he's in good form. So you can imagine how poor his success rate is when he's not in good form in terms of like, beating his man and making some space. So at least Thuram, you can reliably get the ball to him and he'll run it down the wing, or, bring it forward 20, 30 meters and lay it off, even if his final ball or his shot across is not good. You at least have that ability to relieve pressure. And that's, I think, a more valuable asset when you think of like, again, if you're comparing like an out of form Lautaro against the out of form Thuram, I'm taking the out of form Thuram.
Yeah, but if we talk about the match yesterday, I think Thuram was like, he wasn't inside the match properly. He was like, I don't know.
Neither
felt
were
like
good.
he was rolling.
We're kind of splitting hairs there. Neither were good, but I mean, I do agree with Jay that Thuram, in my opinion, was slightly more usable yesterday. And sort of just useful in terms of his ability to win 50-50, or at least challenge for 50-50 aerial balls, and the fact that he can at least run with the ball and create a counter-attacking threat. Lautaro gave us nothing yesterday.
But did Thuram do any of that? I don't think he did. Like, he can do all kind of stuff, but he didn't really do yesterday that. All I
No,
think.
I agree. It didn't come off for him yesterday. I think that obviously the biggest microcosm of that was the Bongiorno chance, or the chance where he tried to take on Bongiorno to the right, which I don't know why he felt like he even needed to beat him. He should have gone centrally and tried to force a pass to Lautaro, or at least use Lautaro to help draw a defender away from him and take a shot. But I still think overall, looking at their games yesterday, that Thuram was more helpful to our cause than Lautaro was.
All right, let's. This episode's running a little long, so let's wrap up with this subject. The table is just extremely congested right now at the top. Like I mentioned at the top, we had a little chance to break away yesterday, or even Napoli had a chance to break away yesterday. Neither of us did. And now you have somehow we fell to fourth place, a tie for fourth place. You have Atalanta on 25 points, Fiorentina on 25 points, Lazio on 25 points, all tied with us, 1 point back in Napoli, and you there lurking behind at 24 points. So we have a congested table.
Don't
We have
forget
a
Milan.
highly competitive league. Yes, and Milan has a
At
game in
18.
hand, so I don't want to give them too much credit yet. They have to take care of their business, but I already know where this is going to go. As we look at these teams who are all tied with us, close to us, like what are your guys' thoughts and feelings? Who are the real Scudetto challengers? Who's going to fade down the stretch? Like, which teams are you actually scared of dethroning us? And yeah, well, let's start with that. Sterling, what do you think?
It's Napoli and Juventus. I don't really think that Atalanta is always a nice story, and oftentimes they're around this part in the table, fairly deep into the season, or at least I guess after the final third. Sometimes you look and you see Atlanta in a surprising position, but they have a history of falling off in the second half of seasons, at least certainly in the league. So I wouldn't think that they were going to make a legitimate title challenge. Fiorentina, I think, is a surprise package. Nobody expected Fiorentina to be this high up the table. Nobody expected Moise Kean to have the season that he's having. He looks like a player completely reborn. Very impressive, honestly. He looked really, really good, especially this weekend. So they are going to be a team that will take points off of a lot of teams this year, and I think that it's certainly you wouldn't want to go away and play at the Artemio right now with the form that they're in. So I wouldn't be surprised if they have their say in the title challenge in terms of taking points off of some title contenders, but I don't think that they'll be consistent enough across the actual season to mount a title challenge because they still play on Thursdays. Don't forget about that. People tend to forget about the Conference League, but it is still a real thing. So they have a more packed fixture schedule. Yeah, Napoli and Juve for me. I think that Juventus, I still think that they're probably going to come up short. That's just my feeling about them, unless they do something maybe in the January window and find a way to score more consistently. Because I still think that Vlahovic doesn't really score enough. Yildiz has his moments, absolutely. He's looked better the last couple of weeks, certainly against us, but how consistent can he be as a 19-year-old across an entire season? And then they're starting Weah at right wing. Great for me as a U.S. men's national team supporter, but in reality, is he going to be strong enough? I do like Conceição. I think that he's a really good player, and I think that he should certainly be the starting right winger for them at this point, even when Nico Gonzalez comes back. But I still look at Juventus and I feel like they're able to drop points against anybody. Whereas I don't necessarily get that feeling as much from Napoli. I do feel like Napoli will consistently beat the teams in the bottom half of the table, and that always makes you dangerous in a league race because, as Andrew mentioned earlier, if you can go and you can get these away results against Juventus, against Inter, and you can beat the other teams that you should beat, then yeah, you will look up towards the end of the season, and you're going to be in a pretty good position if you can put a decent 4 or 5 game run together when it really matters. And I just trust that Napoli will be able to do that a bit better than the rest of them. Certainly with Conte at the helm, who has a ton of experience. winning the league, and also, yeah, they don't play midweek fixtures in Europe, and that's going to be a extremely important piece of this as well. So, um, in my opinion, yeah, Napoli and Juventus are two teams I could actually see potentially being rivals, but I would still give the clear edge out of those two to Napoli, and I really think it comes down to us and Napoli for who wins this title.
Yeah, I would call Lazio is a nice surprise given how their coaching situation went in the summer, and I wasn't expecting much from them, but they've been like real strong at this point, and I'm low key a bit scared about the Lazio away match. I think we'll have them away after the break pretty soon.
And
So I'm
Inzaghi's
looking.
record against Lazio as our manager is horrendous.
Yeah, and they are in a super form at this moment. Actually, do we have Fiorentina match as well coming right after the break?
Yes.
Like not right after, but pretty soon. So there's two tough matches coming since they are in super form. But like Sterling mentioned about the midweek games, there's like top eight all have midweek games except Napoli. So that's a huge advantage for them because there's Bologna at 8, and even they have the midweek games. Okay, they will play 4 games in the Champions League, and then they are most probably out since they have like 1 point at this point at this moment. So they won't advance, but all the rest will. So there's extra 2 games minimum for Inter, Milan, and Juve. And I don't know if Juve won't make it, and Atalanta, and maybe Juve. Well, that's another discussion how the Champions League will go. That's interesting as well. But there's this fight for the top 8 there, and if you can't make it, there's yet another 2 games for the winter schedule. So that's important to avoid that. And then there's the famous Supercoppa, so that's 1 or 2 games extra for, I believe it's Inter, Atalanta, and Milan Juve. So 2 of those will get extra 2 matches. I think it's right after the new year, I believe. So there's a lot of matches, extra matches coming to these teams, except Napoli. So they are clear challengers, Scudetto challengers among Inter. I wouldn't. I think Juve they are not good enough. Like they won this round, but they drew with Parma week ago, and they keep losing points against lesser teams too much. I feel that they are not ready yet this season.
Jay, you may as well tell me why Milan's going to win the league.
It's Milan. It's Milan. It's Milan. That's all I'll say.
All right. I think that on that ever optimistic note, we can get a Jay's hot betting tip. And
But did you, Jay, saw the Cagliari match?
I did actually, but
of course he did. He was wearing his Milan kit watching it.
How do you comment?
I think it was a tough earn point at a hard away ground. Everyone knows traveling to Cagliari is a difficult place to travel.
Okay, that's true, but
not just anyone can walk into Sardinia and get a point.
How about our boy Zappa? He almost scored a hat trick there.
Our boy Zappa is Milan's boy because after the game he went out and exchanged shirts with Theo Hernandez and told him he's a Milan fan. So
what? Really?
Yeah, apparently. So it's hard to call him our boy.
God damn.
Fucking Judas. Look, Jay's hot betting tip is on Monday or Sunday, European time. Italy play France in the Nations League. I'm going to call it a 3-1 reverse this time. France are going to get their revenge and avenge the 3-1 victory that Italy took back in August, September. But I'm going to say goals from I almost said Liao. Goals from goals from Pavard, Thuram, and
Pavard is not even part
He's
of
called
the
up. They
French.
called him up this morning.
yeah, they called him up today.
Oh, okay.
So that's
this
why
morning.
Yeah, that's why he's replacing someone who's injured. But
Okay.
That's why
I think.
yeah, for final from Chelsea. But that's why I'm giving him, a shout out on his return to international duty. Goals from Pavard, Thuram, and we'll give one to Magnan.
I have to listen to you trolls tell me how great Retegui is, and now you're telling me he's not going to score against this broken France side.
Retegui will score the one goal, so it'll be 3-1, and the Italian goal we scored by Retegui. I'm starting to think Retegui's a better player than a certain Argentine forward of ours, but
Oh my god.
Well, that's we'll wrap up there. Thank you all for listening. International break next week. We are planning on putting out an episode, but we're obviously a little light on topics. So, do you have anything you want to talk about? You want to hear us talk about? Tweet at us. Comment on the YouTube page. Comment on Spotify. Email us at inter.jections.pod@gmail.com. Tons of ways to get a hold of us. Just open to anything you guys want to hear. Open into that listener feedback. Sterling, thanks for stepping in and potting with us this week. Always appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
Mikko, take us away.
See you on Forza Inter and Juve Merda.